Since the Reagan administration, the government has been providing bailouts to several industries deemed too big to fail. From the bailout of the airline and automotive industry of the early 21st century to Donald Trump's recent deal with Carrier, bailouts have proven to have both positive and negative effects on the economy. For instance, they enhance corporate moral hazard but save millions of hardworking Americans from becoming unemployed by disincentivizing outsourcing in the short run. So you may be thinking, what does this have to do with me? Government bailouts impact the American taxpayer more than one could imagine. How they impact us, however, is not always clear. Well, today, in the next 10 minutes, we will explore a recent meaning and the effects of government bailouts on the average citizen. Many of you may have heard of government bailouts, but may not know what it means and how it impacts you, the American taxpayer. In its simplest form, a bailout is when the government offers money in the form of cash, loans, tax breaks, bonds, or stocks to a failing business in order to prevent devastating consequences to the industry.
A prominent example is the airline industry. During the 1990s, major U.S. airlines enjoyed a strong economy and low fuel prices. However, they did not take full advantage of the favorable economic environment. Legacy carriers like United, American, and Delta flew too many flights, resulting in empty planes. They fiercely competed for market share by lowering ticket prices and delayed modernizing their fleets with newer, more fuel-efficient aircrafts. The poor business practices were unsustainable in slow economic periods, beginning with the dot-com bust in 2000, followed rapidly by rising oil prices and 9/11 in 2001. Many of the largest U.S. airlines were on the brink of collapse. Immediately after 9/11, Congress threw airlines a $15 billion bailout package after intense lobbying from airlines amounting to over $12 million. Though major U.S. carriers were saved from collapse, the negative impact on the economy was significant. Airlines collectively shed over 150,000 jobs, terminated pensions, and avoided paying taxes until as recently as 2015. Though not all airlines' jobs were lost, the $15 billion was used to save them ended up costing the U.S. economy much more. Had fundamentally more efficient airlines like Southwest filled the void from bankrupt airlines, the government would have had billions in higher tax revenue, in addition to saving over $15 billion. Money could have been used in better ways to support the middle class, jobs, and stronger industries instead of propping up companies that were reducing low-paying middle-class jobs and cutting their well-earned retirement plans. In addition, lobbying should not decide who the winners and losers are.
To accurately determine the effects of the automotive bailout, let's take a look at the statistics. According to the Center of Automotive Research, American taxpayers paid $80.7 billion and ended up losing $10.5 billion after the Treasury Department exited their investments. They estimated that 2.63 million Americans' jobs would have been lost, and the bailout saved 1.5 million of them. While the government had to cut a huge check to GM and Chrysler, the bailout avoided $105.3 billion in unemployment benefit payments and lost Social Security. Since the bailout, the Treasury Department has claimed that GM and Chrysler have created over 50,000 new jobs. Additionally, those who kept their jobs have contributed over $105 in government taxes. While Americans had to pay the price of the automotive bailout, the money directed went to keeping the middle class at work. Consequently, these 1.5 million Americans were able to continue their participation in the economy, thus stimulating economic growth due to an increasing the consumption of goods, which in turn helps producers. The alternative would have been American taxpayers paying the price of unemployment for millions of Americans that would have received lower incomes and would have not been able to participate as much in the market economy.
December 18, 2008, President George Bush announced that the Troubled Asset Relief Program Fund would alleviate the burden on American automotive industry. General Motors and Chrysler experienced a 40% decline in sales from previous years as a result of the two companies' unwillingness to produce more fuel-efficient vehicles. With a decline in sales and the Great Recession taking effect, both the Bush and Obama administration justified the massive loan. The automotive industry financing program invested approximately $80 million to save failing companies and, more importantly, save American jobs.
Many critics argue that the government bailout was unnecessary to maintain the U.S. economy. If there had not been a bailout, firms such as Toyota, Honda, and Ford would have engaged in economic natural selection by picking up the market share and consequently increasing U.S. factories and jobs. This, however, does not take into account the effect on the supply chain. Would have likely been forced to shut down due to drastic decreases in the demand for auto parts. This would have hurt many middle-class workers who were employed by these small firms, but also hurt Ford because they would no longer have access to cheap suppliers.
A more recent form of government bailout has occurred after the election of Donald Trump. On December 1, 2016, Trump announced that he saved 1,100 jobs that were going to be sent to Mexico.
Carrier, an air conditioning and heating company that is a large plant in Indianapolis, planned on sending 2,100 jobs to Mexico to reduce labor costs. Trump, with his campaign centered on keeping jobs in America, negotiated a deal to keep his campaign promise. In exchange for a $7 million tax break, 800, not 1,100 jobs would stay in Indianapolis. To put it plainly, American taxpayers are paying to get laid off. But instead of just paying for their unemployment benefits, taxpayers are also paying Carrier. See the problem? When the government increases taxes, the lower and middle class are the ones that suffer. They have less disposable income, and decreasing that amount further only stimulates lost activity in the economy. The decreased activity not only creates a greater inequality, but it also hurts the economy as a whole, because those lower and middle class Americans can no longer put money back into the market to help these firms.
Government bailouts over the course of American history are an example of government action that interferes with the country's fundamentally market economy. In both the airline and auto industry bailouts, companies spent large amounts of money lobbying in order to shape American policies that favored their companies. Actions like these are large contributors to inequality in our country. While bailouts do indeed save jobs, it disproportionately cuts middle-class jobs while saving high-paying executive positions. Bailout companies like Chrysler and United ended up perpetuating the term too big to fail. It supports mismanagement and lets American companies act however they wish, knowing that the federal government will come to their rescue when they are in trouble, just because they are classic American brands. Additionally, when the government takes over a private company like GM, it discourages consumers from purchasing from the company because many do not want to support government interference in the free market. A solution to reducing inequality in America would be to outlaw government bailouts. This way, taxpayer money could be spent supporting sustainable businesses that bring returns to the American economy through creating jobs, paying taxes, and sustaining middle-class jobs. Outlawing government bailouts would reduce the incentive to lobby, which would bring an end to the purchase of a congressman's vote. The process of a bailout is a fine example of Reagan's trickle-down economics. While in theory this principle of investing in the powerful will trickle down into the lower classes seems successful, it is not true in actuality. More and more often, executives of firms are increasing their own salary with extra funding, or cutting jobs and facilities so businesses will make a profit. In 2005, 953 traders and bankers from Goldman Sachs received bonuses worth more than $1 million each, and 428 Morgan Stanley employees were also awarded seven-figure bonuses. This type of reward only increases the income inequality between the top 1% and the rest of America. Instead of government bailing out firms, they should bail out the middle class. The process begins with increasing the minimum wage. Though this will create a binding price floor in the labor market, it will give consumers the ability to spend their income on goods because consumers are what drive the demand for all businesses. With all bailout money going to the top, the leftovers that are given to the middle-class workers are not enough for basic necessities. This will therefore decrease the demand of all normal goods and most inferior goods. This will cause a decrease in the demand for most goods, which will leave firms overproducing and eventually decrease their supply, lowering total GDP and removing labor from the market of factors of production, because no company can hire workers. The Great Prosperity, an era of booming economic success in the late 1940s and early 1950s, demonstrates that this type of investment really works. According to Robert Reich, the United States created the largest middle class that was part of a circular flow cycle. The more prosperous the middle class was, the more successful the national economy was. Middle class wages increased steadily, which allowed them to build homes and consume goods. When middle class Americans have more disposable income, they are more likely to spend it, rather than save money like the wealthy do. This also causes more evenly distributed economic gains. The income inequality gap was significantly smaller. To put it another way, the United States Gini coefficient, a statistical measure of income inequality on a scale of 0 to 1, in 1945 was 0.37. Whereas it has been averaging around 0.46 since 2012. This means that wage gaps have been increasing slowly but surely, and the top 1% have been expanding their revenue with less return to the general public. Thus, implementing a ban on government bailouts could serve as a step in the right direction of achieving another period of great prosperity. While outlawing government bailouts may be the best option, the issue is not black and white. Gray areas lie in cases such as the automotive industry bailout, where market failure caused the major industry to suffer. In cases of economic emergencies such as this, gray areas lie in cases such as the automotive industry bailout, where market failure caused the major industry to suffer. In cases of economic emergencies such as this, the government should step in and save American jobs. But do only that. Regulations need to be implemented to freeze and even lower executive pay during times of financial crisis, and the government needs to allocate money more efficiently to bring the struggling industry back into prosperity for all, not just the executives.